Eye on Earth is fundamentally about convergence, collaboration and knowledge sharing. Magnitude and diversity of knowledge within the Eye on Earth community is exemplified by the number and diversity of people who have registered for this webinar. So about our speaker, I'm delighted and privileged to introduce today's expert, William, known as Bill Sonntag. Bill needs little introduction to many of you. He has been a leading figure in the data for environment and sustainable development sector for many years. He has managed a variety of initiatives for the US Environmental Protection Agency's Office of International and Tribal Affairs, the Office of Environmental Information. His professional resume is extensive. He has contributed to the Group on Earth Observations, GEO, since 2005. He's a member of GEO's US GEO Data Management and International Working Group. He serves on its Standards and Interoperability Forum. And he is currently on secondment from the EPA, the US EPA, to the GEO Secretariat in Geneva, Switzerland, as the Scientific and Technical Officer with a special focus on the Sustainable Development Goals and Policy. And Bill speaks to us today from Geneva. He has been involved in the Eye on Earth movement more or less from its inception. In 2010, he served as co-chair for the capacity building during the preparations for the first Summit of Eye on Earth in 2011 and contributed to the 2015 Summit also. From 1999 onwards, he co-convened along with the European Environment Agency, the Eco-Informatics International Technical Collaboration Process, whose primary collaboration topics include advanced computer science, data system interoperability, indicators and global assessments, sustainability and environment and Earth observation systems. He participated as a member of the UN Environment Programme Advisory Committee for the Division of Early Warning and Assessment and has been Principal US Government Representative for the development of the Global Environmental Outlook, another GEO, the GEO6 report, and development of the Global Environmental Assessment System, UNEP Live, which interestingly is the subject of an upcoming webinar. He led the EPA engagement in the State Department initiated Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, serving on 2 working groups. He has served as the US delegate to the OECD Working Party on Environmental Information, working with the UN Stats Global Expert Panel on Environmental Statistics, and was involved in the development of the framework document for environmental statistics, and led the US EPA participation in the UN General Assembly process regarding the post-2015 development agenda, the SDGs, targets and indicators, and served as EPA desk officer for the UN Environment Programme. So a tremendous knowledge and history and experience that Bill can bring and share just a little piece of that with us today.
This is Bill Sonntag coming to you from Geneva, the Group on Earth Observation Secretariat. I want to once again thank Derek for all of his efforts to prepare for this webinar. The checklist that he provides to the speakers is comprehensive, including a warning about chaining your dog or something to make sure that we don't have pets on the line. So I've done that, and we should be good to go. I know a lot of you are expert in this field as much as I am, and I'll do this presentation quickly so that we can get to some question and answers as soon as possible in this hour. GEO has been involved in the Sustainable Development Goals process for well, since I've been a part of the GEO process in 2005. We've monitored the activities at the General Assembly level. One of the most important things that GEO participated in was working during 2015 to actually get a reference to including Earth observations in the 2030 Global Plan for Action that was approved by the UN General Assembly. So that includes reference, and there's been a lot that has flowed from that in the 2030 agenda and the SDG process. As you can see from the slide, we've participated in quite a number of events. I think one of the things that was particularly important this year was the first UN World Data Forum in Cape Town in January, and there I think the thing that we saw was the coming together of the global statistical world and the geospatial and Earth observations community. It's not a perfect marriage, not perfect harmony at this point, but definitely I think there's an evolving engagement and integration of the two. As you all know, the UN has designated implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals process to the UN Statistical Commission, and GEO has participated in several side events that have been organized with the Statistical Commission both last year and this year through the GGIM process, and that's been a very good way for the Earth observations and geospatial world to be engaged in the Statistical Commission's processes. As was briefly mentioned by Derek, I had had the opportunity through the work I did with the OECD to start to participate with the Statistical Commission and the UN Statistical Division, the Environment Section, 5 or 6, 7 or 8 years ago actually, where we've worked on the framework document for environmental statistics, which is the basic collection mechanism that the UN uses on environmental data globally. So a lot of the work that I try to do is cognizant of the fact that there's a specific need by countries to fill the rows, columns, and fields of spreadsheets. Visualization using GIS tools is nice, but a lot of the reporting is clearly still done in a very basic format with a spreadsheet and Excel file showing ability to provide data or not provide data, the biennial questionnaire in that form for environmental statistics. So we've tried in GEO to be aware of the fact that that's one of the things that we have to try and service, that basic data collection process, as well as the expansion of that through the data requirements of the SDGs. So just a quick summary of some of the things that we've done. At a global level, we engage, of course, with our GEO members, and I should also have in there our participating organizations as well. We have an almost equal number now of member countries and participating organizations. I spared you the logo slide in this presentation. It's one we use a lot, but it's getting a bit cluttered. So we use our network across all of the countries with both large and small satellite and mapping and geospatial capabilities to help make it clear that the ministries across governments need to engage with each other to provide the data and the information support for the SDGs. We are working to do analysis and are going to rely on some other organizations that are doing analysis to establish, to identify the cross-cutting areas that geospatial and Earth observations data can assist. There's a good deal of analysis going on in that area, and the speed of innovation in that context is really quite high. It's a bit difficult to, frankly, stay on top of it, even from a perspective here in the Secretariat. So one of the things that we do want to try and do is help provide our members and the countries that we're engaged with bilaterally with information about those innovations and where there can be some efficiencies run from using data collected once for multiple goals and targets, and how those goals and targets interact. I mentioned a moment ago we engaged with the Statistical Division on a very regular basis, in particular through the Working Group on Geospatial Information of the Interagency Expert Group. We, in fact, participated in the IAEG meeting in Ottawa just last month, and I was gratified. There was not a lot of reason for me to get up and wave the flag, although I did do that a few times, because many of the organizations that were there, both NGOs as well as various parts of the UN system, made it very clear that geospatial information was going to be one of the most important things that they start to utilize for SDGs. Again, with the custodial agencies for the UN, we've been engaged in particular on a couple of specific indicators, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. But I want to be very clear that through the WGGI and through our network of member countries across the globe, we are very strongly engaging with the custodial agencies for the SDGs, providing as much expertise as we can where needed to make the methodologies robust and bring the geospatial and Earth observations components of the methodologies up to snuff, hopefully towing the line for statistical practice where we can. So again, at a country level, we have our GEO principles in the member countries, and we have a number of bilateral activities through our Earth observations for SDGs initiative that we're engaged in. I'll again gloss over those in a few minutes. Again, where innovation speaks, it seems to be through a lot of the partnerships in the global context. You can see a selection of those here in the slide that's being shown. In particular, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network is doing a lot to look at the state of play, basically, that we see about ability to report. You're going to see some reports that are going to be coming out as we move to the high-level political forum coming up during the summer that are going to start to show some of the statuses of countries, their ability to provide data for the goals and targets and indicators. That's going to, I think, help focus activities over the next year, because we're going to see a number of goals are going to need a lot of work and a lot in a number of countries. So those kinds of reports, I think, will be more up on the radar screen over the next 2 months, and I think help set our course for the countries and the goals that need that extra assistance in the coming year. I want to shout out just a little bit, in particular, the work we've done with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. That has been very fruitful for us. There is a very strong intersection, I think, between the earth science, natural resource, environment area, which we have a primary specialization, and the classical development assistance, social welfare, even economic development part of practice in the global context. And that's where those groups have, I think, successfully met and collaborated in the partnership. So it's been valuable for us to, in particular, see the speed of innovation in a lot of the things having to do with population, social, and kind of the classical statistical practice, administrative data, etc. So just a quick note of that value that's provided. We're also working to involve regions, and I've got three up here that have particular merit and particular substance. AmeriGeos in particular has been working on the GeoGlows ensemble of data and inputs, which revolves around water and water security. There's a meeting coming up next month to discuss the methodologies and the data inputs. That's had a lot of assistance from NASA and NOAA in the United States. Again, a hemisphere concentration there to try and develop our work with Latin America and the Caribbean. The GeoGlows water ensemble has been one of the places one of the things that's been of high value in that context. AfriGeos, I'd note that that group, very dynamic, led by a very dynamic person here at the Secretariat, and they're focusing on the kinds of things that are of very real interest in the African context, including dealing with hunger, sustainable cities, our interest in sustainable land management in Goal 15, and then again in Goal 6 is the water and sanitation area, which has been another priority. So we have a number of specific initiatives that are underway under AfriGeos that are going to be discussed in Pretoria at a meeting next month, where I think GEO and a lot of the community are going to come together and identify some new targets and additional efforts. In the working group on geospatial and geographic information under the IAEG, GEO took on some very specific tasks there, and that's one of the things that I guess when we talk about a data ecosystem, we have to get down to the real nitty-gritty of the methodologies that we use to collect data for the goals and targets. In this particular instance, the WGGI selected a number of goals and targets that were in what the UN IAEG is classifying Tier 3 status, not supported by strong methodologies and generally only limited data collection that can be established at this point. And our interest was to try and bring these up to the Tier 2 and Tier 1 status through working with the custodial agencies of the UN to identify robust methodologies that can be scaled and reproduced. 6.6.1 is the extent of water-related ecosystems, and that has several sub-indicators that I'll talk about very briefly. 15.3.1 is related to degraded land and very much a part of the global efforts underway right now to establish a common approach to using Earth observations to establish land classification and extent of the degraded area and types of land cover, etc. So we picked those two as a lead, developed some short papers that are in draft at this point, and they'll have further discussion at a meeting in China of the WGGI coming up the same week that GEO will be in Africa for the meeting I mentioned earlier. So 6.6.1 is one that I worked on, so I thought I'd highlight it. It's percentage change of water-related ecosystems over time. Again, the goal is to ensure availability, sustainability, water management, sanitation. Target 6.6, protect and restore water-related ecosystems. So it's always useful to go back to the source. That's what we're trying to provide data on. The UN Environment Program, UN Waters, have been leading an extremely valuable process for developing the methodology for this indicator. They have identified sub-indicators. I'm sorry, the one quadrant there is a little difficult to read. But we're basically able to start with the spatial extent, you see down in the lower right, and move to the others as we can. Quantity of waters in the ecosystem, that's the one that's hard to read. Quality, and then resulting state and health of ecosystems. So indicator 6.6.1 under the broader target and goal is quite an important one. Again, one of the reasons why we chose to pick that as an effort that we're helping to lead along with the custodial agencies. So the method there is going to include Earth observations, images. I'm not going to read the slide, but you can see the usual things that one would raise there. They're going to be costs to ground truth. We're going to participate with UN Environment and UN Waters in assisting to ground truth the response from a data study that they have beginning very soon. GEO will be engaged in, again, attempting to match some observations to what we see coming into the study. Obviously, it's seasonal and temporary changes in extent that are going to be involved. These are all really classical topics that have been a part of the questions that people are attempting to resolve in the global community in these fields that are really being brought kind of to a head by the need to supply data for the SDGs. So data ecosystem, SDGs are helping catalyze some discussions that really predate them, but are made much more important by the need to try and produce for the post-2030, or pardon me, the 2030 agenda. So here's where we have seen that there are observations, linkages. The shaded squares are where we think there are intersections with geospatial data. So the takeaway from this slide, besides trying to turn yourself sideways to read the top axis there, is that there's quite a number of areas where Earth observations can be germane. That mosaic there is shows that with the dark spaces as the place where we see relevancy. Our way forward is, I think, fairly obvious. We want to help develop the SDG reporting, national data ecosystems with in-country assessments and technical assistance. We have work underway in a number of countries at this point that under our EO for SDG country-level engagement. For instance, we had a meeting late last month in Colombia where we brought together the GPSDD, the regional UN entities, and several ministries across Colombia to develop a collaboration, expand ongoing pilots. In that case, we had the Committee for Earth Observing Satellites involved. They are looking at the possibility of deploying a instance of the CEOS developed data cube. So a lot of activity in Colombia. We also have some interest in the Balkans and Albania, and we're engaged again through the GPSDD in Kenya, which is going to have a high-level meeting coming up in the next couple of months. And they've identified, of course, agriculture, precision agriculture, forest cover extent, capacity building, and spatial data collaboration for a national spatial data infrastructure is something that they're interested in, and GEO is going to help support. We've also had engagement with Senegal and with Ghana, and in the United States in particular, we're hoping to lead the way with some assistance to the Census Bureau. Many countries are getting ready for a decadal census in the next, really beginning this year, the next 3 years, and we're hoping through the work at the U.S. Census and through the Statistical Commission that we can, again, build infrastructure and build capacity within countries through the census process using Earth observations and GIS data. So again, back to the slide, we're providing analysis and experience-based information. Again, attempting to find those synthesis areas between societal benefit and policy areas. GPSDD again mentioned there. And then again, for probably the third time, working with custodial agencies to support the monitoring methodologies with Earth observations. So I'm going to end, I told you I'd try and keep this short. I'm 7 minutes over my limit that I set on myself. I'd just like to note, though, that one of the things that's really most important over the coming years, I think, in addition to assisting those that are going to have some struggles with providing data, the other thing that I think is really going to be helpful is to try and work on this question of synthesis, figure out where there can be efficiencies run from the multiple use of data across the goals and targets, and what kind of analysis frameworks we want to apply to the SDGs. After all, they are just a means to an end, the end being sustainable society, social equity, gender equity, ending hunger and poverty. Those things are large social endeavors. The goals, targets, and indicators are simply, again, a means. We need to do our best to try and interact with the policy apparatus, providing the best data and visualization possible from the SDGs, so that the politicians, community leaders, subnational otherwise, can have a successful and a set of data that's going to be useful to make policy and move the 2030 agenda forward. So, with that, again, there are a good many experts on the line here. Derek, you can lead us forward on how to put questions and get some responses. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Bill. So we have a few questions in the queue at the moment, but before we turn to that, I wonder if I could just turn to PJ Stevenson from IUCN, a member of the Iron Earth Alliance, to give a vote of thanks to our speaker. PJ, are you there?
I'm there. Can you hear me, Derek?
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead,
okay.
please.
Okay, great. Okay, well, as Derek said, I'm with IUCN, and so my role here just now is on behalf of IUCN and the other Iron Earth Alliance partners, just to offer a vote of thanks to Bill for his presentation this afternoon. I was actually at some of the same meetings as Bill. Bill, I'm not quite sure how we didn't manage to link up, but I was also at the Interagency Expert Group on SDG Indicators in Ottawa, and just yesterday as well, the Regional Forum for Sustainable Development for the UN ECE region. And in both of these cases, or both of these meetings, I think the importance of measuring global goals came out very clearly. I mean, monitoring is a massive task. I think it's been an absolutely monumental undertaking that the UN has started now to try and measure the SDGs. But it's good to see the effort underway. It's obviously going to take a lot of effort to get the data to measure the relevant indicators. And that effort is going to reflect, I think, globally what we know is already happening in certain sectors, such as health, and of course, in the environment as well. And as a point I've made at some of these meetings, I think we have a lot to learn from these global processes from what we've also tried in the environment sector and things like around CBD and so forth. Anyway, a key issue in the SDGs is obviously data collection and management, and I think Bill's presentation today was a great introduction to GEO's key role in addressing some of these issues. I was especially pleased to see GEO's role in ensuring geospatial data will be adequately met in indicator measurements was brought out. And I would also underline Bill's point about the importance of partnerships and networks. And that's come out in several meetings recently, that clearly we can only ever start to monitor the state of our planet if we work together. I'd also think, Bill, one of your last points about the need for analysis frameworks is also incredibly key. One thing we haven't really ever cracked properly in the sort of context of the environment and CBD and HE targets is this interlinkage between indicators. So I think certainly with the SDGs, that's something that we're going to have to get into more, because there's immense potential here to see the different relationships between different SDG indicators as well. So I won't go beyond there other than to just repeat my thanks, Bill, for a very interesting update.